actually going to do mostly discussion, but just to kind of set up the purpose. Bruce and I are not entirely sure why we were asked to do this session. Neither of us really feel like our advisories are like fantastic. So we're not going to be just listing off, here are ideas of things you can do in advisory. Really what we wanted to start the conversation with is reading an article about mentor relationships, what they're good for, but then also characteristics of good relationships that mentors and mentees have, so that we can start by framing our mindsets on what that could look like, and then we'll start talking about, okay, now we have advisory that's 20 minutes at the end of the day, where do those meet? So I'm going to pass around a short article that is stolen from a book. So the author in the book is at the top, but I kind of just copied a short article. It's front and back. So just one last time before you start reading. We're looking for what are characteristics of mentor relationships and what are they good for. And I'll give us about 5 minutes to read and then we'll check in and see where everyone's at. Okay. one more minute. So that was 5 minutes. Does anybody need a significant amount more time? Okay. So we're going to discuss 2 questions in a second, and we're going to do it first in small groups and then the same discussion questions as a whole group. That's just kind of like a personal preference because I don't really speak that much in a large group if I don't have strong opinions, but that doesn't mean I don't have opinions. So I figured it'll kind of get a little more discussion going. But maybe we should switch these groups a little bit because we're a little gender segregated. Javier, do you want to switch with Dion? Springer, switch with Nevez.
We don't lack
Yeah. Bruce and I will probably talk or join some groups, but we've already read this and talked about it, so it wouldn't really be that helpful if we pushed our views. So, I'm going to put this handwritten version of the questions up here, since there's this nice document camera right here.
Yeah, good.
But I'll read them out loud as well. So the first question is, pretty general. What parts of this selection were surprising in regards to your views of a mentor relationship, or what reinforced beliefs you already hold? And then the second one, and so you're going to have 5 minutes, so choose whenever you want to switch over into either of these questions. The second one is, do you wish to challenge any of the findings or seek further clarification of this article put forth? So I'll put 5 minutes on the clock. You're free to direct your own conversations. Try to ground it in the article we read. Okay.
Okay, so I don't think I was shocked.
advisory.
If anything, it just reinforced my relationship. You know, we need to have a strong bond with your mentor. So I underlined the word bond. And I said that this was like just that kind of asset. It was a bond between like
I don't know, like,
and kids.
I mean, I read it through.
To help
I
them
think my highlighted roles that I
talk
talked
about
about two other ones.
relationships,
But I
and the
wasn't
bigger
impressed with
picture.
the years that were together, and they were things that I
Of the
was
day. So I
focused
think
on
it's
building,
just what are you
like building
and relationships,
strong
like
bonds or like rapport with your kids. Because that's when you like filtrate into your classroom, that's when you're trying to do.
You said that if you push it to
successful. So like trusting connection, building that strong bond, just really being youth-centered and sensitive to the things that they're dealing with.
Because I've been asked,
So that like when you're
what is your structure?
you're showing them that they're your
And when I
your
responded,
nature is like,
on these
okay,
days we do these things, that was the
she
extent
cares,
of it.
you know, and often
I'm
these kids
wondering
feel
if
like
maybe-
they don't have the right person, you know, no one cares about them, and so that's why they get
And I
involved
know
in
that
things that
some
necessarily
advisors
aren't needed. So,
have taken it upon themselves to push
that's
farther
my
than
thoughts
should
on
go.
that.
And then create these elaborate structures and then are upset when it doesn't work.
Could have just summed it up in the first paragraph.
What do you interest them?
In my classes, on Mondays, we do something that I chose because I thought it was important. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I teach them a lesson about a subject they ask me to teach about. And then on Fridays, we watch the read commentary, usually
Yeah, you know,
they
kids.
would show.
But this article is saying, even if you to build that mentor
Work for our
relationship, it should be
Definitely.
still.
should
my
be
classroom,
like,
we used to pretty much structure.
like, it should be quote a day.
Kids
Yeah.
talk about subjects.
According to that. So it's almost like 90 days.
Right.
We can argue and students read, or is this just, let's try to model this? They need them away from themselves.
Right, that's a
They
good
kind of
point.
take the reins of it.
That's
So you had a specific observation about your advisory and
That is true,
then you
because I
had
mean,
on
there's
it?
students that
Okay.
don't
Because I have had as well, but I experience it very different.
but this kid was
That's what some of this where it does say, role models who connect with their interests and values. Sometimes they don't know what they don't know, but they say they're interested in. That's what I meant by, that's easy to guys it's a chance to introduce them to things, which then the ones that respond to become incorporated into their. So maybe I want to
just
say.
something that, interesting, because you're not really gonna get that
The next thing, it says the course of the mentoring relationship with the bond is formed exactly as Yeah, and see, I just know a lot of my kids, frankly, don't like doing it. And they'll do it through
Yeah,
because
that's my biggest one with reading.
they buy into that.
I remember,
But they don't.
and then once somebody
Right.
specifically said, like, hey, you might like this book. Then I was like, oh, and I have these other others, but like, the class books that I got.
That we really went out for the classes.
And I took something you specifically said, like, hey, for you,
And they
this would probably.
And that's what I'm teaching.
Yeah.
So we did one on geography, we did one on,
I like topics.
we did one on,
At first,
which I knew nothing about. So
This is so good, and I
I
saw
mean,
this.
essentially, like, when you're
With,
teaching,
King of Queens, it's an educational
you
place,
are.
but I was at a show just last night, and Doug, he wanted to be his friend, you know, so the kids were not responding to him, just like, you know, so he got another kid, then he realized he was getting lighter, and it was something like, so, I mean, he never did, he was like, let me take him to the, okay, let me do this, and it's like, and
Like you said,
this is what you're doing, like, this is what we're thinking. You're like, you said, teacher, I'm like, you can say, hey, well, based on your education, I just did like that contrast, I said, I stick to stuff more like that. And we say outreach,
our
it's just, you know, giving
Every
us
kid feels
a,
like they have the opportunity.
and I think that's the gist of it, like you said, it was like, you know,
With somebody.
and everything else is kind of, you know, repetition, but, and it gives some examples, but the gist of it is like,
That's what happens, just.
I mean, that's pretty much what it is. I think that a lot of the things that you stated, you know, are steps to getting to getting that end goal. I mean, we have trust, bond, respect, you know what I mean? When there's respect, they just work, and not only do they produce work, but they learn these lifelong lessons. So when they leave here, they have the ability, like alternatives available to them.
Alright, so that was about 5 minutes.
I would.
So finish up your conversations.
Support the festival.
So we're gonna spend about 5 more minutes now talking as a whole group, because I know I didn't walk around, but Bruce said, like, walking around, people had different topics that they were discussing, so it would be interesting to hear from different points of view. So I guess just to ground us back in the questions and about the article, the first 2 questions were, what parts of this selection were surprising about what you think of a mentor relationship, or maybe what kind of reinforced what you already thought? And then also, were there any things that you wanted to challenge or that you wanted more information about, or you thought, that's kind of questionable, but there wasn't really backup there?
okay, well, our group, we decided that, what you read just pretty much reinforced what we already did, or what we believed a good relationship would be between a mentor and mentee. And we chose to focus on, you know, being student-focused and, you know, creating a bond that was lasting, that was instrumental for the kid in the long run. So that's what we focused on. And for number 2, we didn't think that there was anything that definitely challenged us at all, any further clarification of people.
Angie and I were talking, we agree that like you definitely need to have that good relationship, that bond, and a trust between the two of you all. We were talking about how there are the ones that kind of get lost or by the wayside are the ones who are quiet, our quiet students, and so sometimes we're so engrossed in conversation and whatnot with the more engaged, the more talkative ones, that the quiet ones just kind of, they're off to themselves doing their own thing, and so it's a way we gotta figure out how to build that relationship with those who are quiet, the quieter ones, or even the ones who we know that they got it. We know like, okay, they're good, they're well taken care of, but then again, they might not be, so we gotta figure out a way to build that.
So, Bruce and I, we have a similar view, I think, of advisory. And so the reason that we started off with thinking about mentor relationships or what mentor relationships look like is neither of us really have kind of like a advisory lesson plan. It's more of like a mentor relationship and seeing how often can we have that conversation with as many people as you can. And so before we move, and Bruce is going to kind of introduce the last part where we really talk about why does this relate to advisory, I wanted to spend some time in the same groups listing out some characteristics of what are the important things for a relationship between a mentor and a mentee. And then after we have those characteristics, we're going to have a discussion about how does that fit into the structure we have for advisory now. So we're going to spend 5 minutes, come up with a list of all the characteristics, some that are in the article, some that you have in your, from your own experiences. What characteristics make up a good mentor relationship? 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Well, I think one of
Trust is
Definitely. Accountability.
Maybe trust. Trust.
Yes, and so this is.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's a,
I have respect,
because,
curiosity, and honesty.
Yeah.
they have to, you can't
Say it again.
tell them something.
Like removing layers or whatever.
It does have, not just a structure, but it needs to have
You know, to
boundaries.
create a strong bond with kids. How do you want to do that?
Well, I think that the bond comes out of this, I think it's automatically going to
Like,
forward. Practicing for sure that they trust you.
it should be separate. But we're adults.
Especially if you it's little kids, you just think automatically.
It's almost like
Well, I know like,
that's the way that
a lot of teachers like build like really strong foundations with kids. They would maintain contact with them and those kids would come back. And then it would be like a cycle, like those kids would mentor like kids in the class, and it was just like a continuous cycle. And so success rates pretty high. Because it was like, okay, this kid was a product of this environment. Make sure to talk about it this way. Okay, now they're proven product right there, that's like proof. And so, because I think no matter what, like no matter how hard we try to get out of people, what I say is the same thing. A child that came from their home, their school, of course, that is really,
Self-confidence.
because,
I think that's a good trait.
we can make the kid our focus. Those kids are gonna know the community background of other kids versus, you know what I mean? Like, we can't honestly bias ourselves, we've gotta always maintain a professional perspective on everything. But sometimes it takes
have to be related.
And I mean, I've never done that, but
Our member used to volunteer.
I see why the
Soup kitchen.
teachers that I work with, why they would use the child, you know what I mean, instead of putting yourself in a predicament. It allowed the kids to say, okay, my teacher told me this right, you can see it, like, right here, you know,
So,
You can't service them.
you can finish those conversations and the characteristics out. So I'm just gonna list them off up here, so you can just shout them out. Maybe just slow down if I'm still writing. But what are the characteristics of a strong mentor relationship?
Dedication,
Dedication to,
to that relationship.
oh, okay.
For sure, unconditional support. I can say everything.
Building trust,
Honesty. Limits.
that's a good one. Accountability,
Respect.
Feel like being willing and open-minded to their specific needs.
relatable,
Competent.
Authentic.
Wait, I'm like 3 behind here. I got authentic.
relatable,
Relatable.
Competent.
Competent on the adult side? Okay.
Maybe.
Hard to address
Either.
something you know nothing about.
Okay.
empathy, or empathetic.
Kids can tell when they're fraud, that's right.
Fortunately, the adults have it figured out.
Okay. So we're pretty much a little more than halfway through our session. So that was to just think about, obviously we have a advisory structure that we're all familiar with. At this point have been working in at least for the past 6 months, maybe for years past. But this was to bring us back to what does a mentor relationship look like, or what's important about that for the kids, and how does an adult do that. So Bruce is now going to talk about our advisory structure specifically.
Alright, so this article, one thing that kept coming up to me, that I already know in my advisory, that's the most important thing, because I've seen some really good advisories. This is my first year having an advisory, but in the past I have witnessed probably 5, maybe 6 in my room, because my room would be used as an advisory room. So I've gotten to see a lot of people do a lot of advisories and be real, not being observed, and this is how the advisory goes. And I've seen some great ones, I've seen some terrible ones. But I'll get to that in a second. One thing, I'm just going to go back to the page, you don't have to follow me, I'm just going to read off some words I notice a lot. Trusting, bond, these words keep coming up. And I know that the #1 thing you can do to develop a bond or develop trust with somebody is to be there frequently. You got 2 people from different sides of the world, don't know each other, don't even like each other. You put them in a platoon and send them off to war, they're going to love each other because it's that frequency, right? That's the #1 thing I'm hearing when I hear trust, bond, is some frequency. This is who we are every day. The other thing I'm hearing is where it says adolescents are keen observers. A lot of you picked up on that. Like talking about the authenticity of the thing. You can't be a fraud. Yeah, they need a role model, and anybody trying to be a role model will never be a role model. That's that paradox, right? We know they need a role model, but if you're trying to be a role model, it's not going to work. I'll get to that in a second, because I'm no role model, but I find myself being a role model. The other thing I liked was where it says, because mentors often have a broader, more informed knowledge base about professions, yada, 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 everybody in here, just by virtue of having gone to college, having lived, having loved, having lived and loved again, you've got knowledge you can bring to a situation. Even if you're struggling with advisory going, I don't know what to do, you probably need to be more and do less in order to develop your advisory, and I'll get to that in a second. So I'll build up something, trust me. So what I was gonna say is, first of all, frequency is the most important, and I'm gonna be straight here. One of the things I'm hearing is that a lot of people, I don't know who you are. I've not observed anybody's advisories unless you're in my class. So I don't know. I mean, I've seen some sometimes, but I don't know anybody here by name, your advisor, what's going on. But I'm hearing that we've got people coming in not doing advisory. They got the time, but the teacher's doing nothing with it. So that has to stop, first of all, just to be honest, because you need the frequency. Even if it's you just standing in front of the class, sitting in front of the class, letting them talk about the day, that is better than nothing. Anything is better than nothing, so be there. The only time I will not have advisory, the absolute only time where I'm like, okay, I'll just be at my desk, is whenever we got one of those like bake sales or something and they're coming in interrupting and I've got like 5 minutes left. I'm right, guys, take the last 5 minutes. I'm not gonna try to force something because then it's not authentic. Then I'm being a teacher. In advisory, you're a mentor, not a teacher, and that's different. So, but 9 times out of 10, we're doing something. Even if I know it's lame, I didn't have time to plan, I will at least just sit there and say what's up. So, I can't emphasize enough. Do something all the time. Offer them something that they want, but in a way they never could get before. One of the things I did was I said, write down 2 questions about college that you have, but here's the catch. One question is a question you'd ask a teacher. Another question is a question you'd ask a friend who's at college. A real question. I will give you a real answer. So they asked about drugs, they asked about sex, they asked about parties, they asked about boyfriends, girlfriends, gossip, they asked all kinds of good questions. And we had some real conversation. They also had some great academic questions too. But I could offer them something they couldn't get anywhere else, and it wasn't magic. It was just giving them what they wanted, and then giving them perspective on life that they didn't have. They asked about gangs. They're like, let's talk about gangs. I was like, all right. And so we started talking about cartels. So what I did is I have a little bit of knowledge they don't because I use the internet for something besides Facebook. I know that I can go to find a nice little Vice News thing on gangs. I'll watch to make sure it wasn't too violent, too bloody, because Vice News can get crazy. And then we watched that over the next 2 days. And then we talked about that, about a community that was standing up to the cartels and what they had to go through, and then how that kind of turned on them because their own militia against the cartels became a sort of cartel, right? And it was very interesting for them to see it. And it was something they wanted, but presented to them in a way they could never have done on their own. And that's what it means to be a mentor. You address their concerns, but you give them something they couldn't have been given before. My 2 favorite advisors that I saw, and it's just by virtue of me being there. It has nothing to do with I've heard great things or anything, it's just out of all that I saw. One was Mr. Springer's, and one was Frazier's, Mr. Frazier. And they went in entirely different directions. Frazier's was off the cuff. I don't think he ever showed anything on a film clip. I don't think they ever listened to anything. It was odd. But every day he was there. Every day he was asking them about their weekend, their week, their problems. I hear something's going on at lunch. And it was very authentic, and it was very unplanned, and it was beautiful. Springer's, on the other hand, would have some of that, but a lot of that was him trying to inform the students. Now, he had older students too. But he always came with something that addressed an academic concern, a college concern, and he had them. And it was just by frequency, because at the beginning of the year, he was chasing cats. By, I'd say, end of second quarter, he had them. He had them. And for the rest of the year, he can bring in all kinds of high-level stuff. And the kids were following because of the frequency. They knew this was what was going to happen. They knew they couldn't play around. It was good stuff. So, why are we chosen to be up here is because we are frequent in our advisors. Anytime she comes in to see an advisory, we've got something going on. Anytime they walk by an advisory, it's us doing something. And that is more important almost always than what you do, because that's how you build the trust. But now, my question is, because you've got 2 different problems in our advisories here. One is if we have problems. If you don't, then good, you can offer ideas. But one is, how do we build the trust? And my belief on it is frequency. You're not going to do it overnight. And then, so great, you got that. I know plenty of people in here got that. Well, we can talk about anything we do. Great, what do you do with the trust now? Now you're given a gift. You're given a responsibility. You have that trust. You have it. Do something with it. What can you do with this? Now, I've got 7 different ideas in my head of things I've done I thought were cool or things I don't, but I don't want to do that. What I want you guys to do is to address those 2 problems. Think of 3 ways you can build trust. Because if you already know it, I know some people in here already know that, put them down. Then think of three things you can do to use that trust to your advantage. And I want to share them. We're not going to write them down. I just want to go through them quickly so everybody in here can take notes. If you hear one that sounds cool, write it down. Use it in your advisory. And that's how the mentoring applies to the advisory. Go for it. How many minutes we got left before we're out?
There's 13 minutes.
Oh, we got plenty of time. Good. Take 5 minutes. I'll check in 3, see what we got. I'll write it up here in case you got lost in my best speech. 3 ways to build trust. You can work in your groups. You don't have to be silent. 3 ways to build trust. 3 ways to utilize trust. So once you got it, what do you do with it that makes it a mentor relationship instead of a friendship?
Can we use it instead of utilizing it?
What?
Can we use it instead of utilizing it?
No, because you're literally turning it into a tool at this point, so I chose utilize on purpose. Trust is a tool in a sense. It's not a friendship, you're being a mentor.
Hammer?
It is a hammer.
They're the nails.
Right, however you need it, man, whatever you need.
Why not? Some of it is like,
If you use the trust, you're using it to your advantage. Do your work.
That's how I'm feeling right now.
Oh,
but like, have a conversation about something, and it's like really unstructured,
Definitely.
random, I feel like it's not, you know, I don't know, it's kind of.
So communication, present. That's good, yeah. When we have these 3, my fiance. Yeah.
Here's what I tell my kids, and again, I told you my structure. What we talk
Right.
about stays in this room. I always tell them, we talk about it. Of course, that caution on that. Talk about teaching. I always tell them that we talk about this room stays in this room.
So showing interest.
Can you
It's a
look
freedom.
into them if they say something like I can't tell you.
You know, there's a legal perspective on that.
Emphasize the necessary to teach responsible talk.
No, I understand. That's part of our job.
And yourself.
I mean, there's some discussion. It's just a change. We'll talk about what happened.
All of the people thinking that is great.
I can't believe what happened in classes. So, when we talk about stage.
Yeah, that's comfortable.
And there's been a couple times.
You got your discourse and then you have your gossip. It's 2 different.
Was there, I guess, an example of identical perspectives so if you don't agree, be okay because like that, and I don't agree, you can have a privilege whatever. But also,
I think that like kind of,
You didn't film me right
you
because I
have
didn't
a
have a
positive
sombrero.
culture
Right?
about your relationships.
No.
The outcome, you know, there's a productivity, there's
was authentic
Like, I think
opinions,
that's
respectfully
like
expressed.
that sums up.
He said, you will never go wrong with an authentic expectation, respectfully expressed. I think it's
And I think culture is pretty much
But
motivational factors. Just honesty, unconditional, you know.
So I'm making notes, yeah.
No, I was looking for,
For the better.
You're what?
I thought
It is, I believe.
It's very good when I wrote, just
That's always a hard one. Stupid in trouble, like, what's the worst thing you can do? And so like, oh, like, step down. Sometimes it's like,
something that,
I'm just listening.
Okay.
Oh, good, good, I'm ready to hear it, I'm ready to hear it. Like I said, I don't do anything amazing, I just do something every day, so I'm not stealing ideas.
So is it, so we'll discuss
That's awesome.
because you wouldn't want me to.
You've been branding with shy.
Because he messed with his first semester.
Next
He
question.
was telling
But
that.
here's, it's not just, oh, they're the one.
This happened, I didn't get an example, but I'm trying to get back. But I went to school, so I think maybe have more connection.
that really does help, because even let's say we had like last summer, when the one that came in, I was talking about the college, and they were answering questions that came to them, because like we said something, it's like, I didn't took out 7 years ago, shut up, and everyone was,
Oh, some white teacher.
or they didn't think they were getting a teacher.
You know, and we both know that, so be out there. Yeah, because it's not going to get you
It was at the Myers ceremony.
I was busted and you can't handle the Queen's English, really.
Yeah, we could,
So,
I think.
so if you're only half urban,
They could cut it.
Half urban, that's right.
Yeah, and it's just that, there, it was no personal investment, they just
Yeah.
wanted me to think
Yes.
they were cool.
and see, I established with my kids very early on that I have no pretensions of cool. I clearly am not cool, but never will.
All right, cool. Let's,
That means
All right,
I
wrap
lose a
up your,
couple kids up at the beginning, but I gain.
sentences. Come to the end of your
Our thought,
discourse. Yeah, and then we're done thing.
okay,
No.
the last thing is, I'm trying to check back in anytime where there's been and so we was trying to grow, you know, their hair. Building up their system, not as a person, as a person, you good.
What are the things that you want to do?
All right. So what I would like to do now is informally list, I want to hear everything every group has to say, informally. I'll be writing down things too because, like I said, I'm using ideas. I don't have a perfect advisory, I have a frequent advisory. So anything I hear, I'm liable to steal. And you should do the same. So I suggest, since we got absentee members both here, we'll start in the middle. So what do you guys have for, say, building trust?
So we talked about several things. I think the biggest piece is showing that you care. And there's multiple ways to do that, right? So when you know your kids are on the sports teams, you go to their games, and then you mention the games. Like that was a great shot or a great goal or whatever. You know about their academic interests. You know about their extracurricular activities. You know about who their friends are, who their girlfriends and boyfriends are. You ask about that. When you know someone is clearly like having an off day, you ask about it. Some of the basic things, like things that most of us already do, or like do with people we know and love and care about. Because especially like the kids, they're not going to come tell you like I had a bad day. Like, but if you notice they're off and you say like, "Are you okay?" Yeah, they'll probably say, "Oh, I'm fine, I'm fine." But the next time they're having an off day, maybe they'll come talk to you.
Make yourself available.
Yeah.
Good. What would you say, let's just say you've got this, all your kids love you, they trust. What are some ways you can utilize that trust? What are some ways you can put that to use? They're gonna change the world,
Yeah. Well, we utilize it to build culture in the building. And just, like connections. I don't know, I thought that building culture, it pretty much was like the umbrella under all of our ways that we're gonna build trust, because when you have trust and connections and bonds like that with all of your scholars, you're able to take them to the next level, which is, you know, building positive culture, which is conducive to learning, outside, things that they plan to do, whether it's like goal setting. So that's pretty much what we came up with.
What does that look like? I'm curious, what does that, when you say building culture, like, okay, so we're an empty lot, you're gonna build some culture. What does that look like? What do you mean by that?
So I think what Shane's getting at is that, people learn best from the people they love, right? If there's behaviors that we want them to adopt, right? We want them to be leaders, we want them to be caring, we want them to be those things, right? We need to model those things. And that's what advisory is for, is modeling maybe balanced, right? Talking about your life outside of school,
Okay.
right? Or modeling time management skills, like sitting down and saying, this is how I planned out my day. Like, let me show you my planner.
Okay,
Okay,
I see that makes sense.
If there are traits you want them to have, we need to model those, like, we need to do those things.
I've just been trained when I hear culture, I think uniforms, but I know what you're.
No, I'm saying like actual culture, like, because, not that uniforms aren't actual culture. But like, if you want to change a culture, right, you can't just walk in and say like, this is how we're changing culture. You have to get people to buy into that culture, and you do that by building trust. If people trust you, they're going to adopt, either consciously or unconsciously, subconsciously, those behaviors you want them to adopt. Sometimes those behaviors you don't want them to adopt, because like the article says, like, kids are keen observers. They look at everything you do and they adopt those things.
We have all members here. What would you guys say, some interesting things that we haven't heard yet about how to build trust?
One that came up, it's always okay to give authentic opinions that are respectfully expressed. And that goes both ways. That we value what somebody thinks if they can express it respectfully, even when we completely disagree, because in the process of sharing, they're giving us something, they're giving us another point of view. It's the only thing we can't give ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And the emphasis on respectful expression and getting to that piece, which is often the missing part, which can make arguments out of discussions.
Yeah, or gossip, as opposed to gossip.
Yeah.
Okay, now what do you have, I'm trying to speed this up so everybody can talk. What do you have that you can do with that trust? I think this is the most important key. We've got the trust. What are some things that we can do?
I put, use trust to develop character. Because advisor for me is the opportunity for me to personally invest in my future by building the character of the kids before me. So I spend a lot of time just kind of discussing or modeling how to engage with others when you disagree, how to respectfully disagree, how to respectfully get your point or opinion across without being offensive, and also how to push yourself to be open-minded about things that are hard for you to be open-minded about. So just trying to build that character of being, a global citizen, of being okay with that. You're not okay with someone's behavior or life choice or whatever, but that's not your opportunity to impress your opinions and values and rights beyond their values and rights.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna try to get some,
I want to toss one more in real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I had college and career exploring because I think we do too much college and career guidance, which implies that we have the answer and we're waiting for them to ask for it. Where instead we should be saying, tell us more about what you're interested in, and giving them resources to go find stuff. I discovered one of my kids is interested in pre-med. But she walked up and said, do you know anything about becoming a doctor? I was like, okay, we went 4 months without having that discussion.
Nice. All right, just one from each, or if you got more, you think? What is a good way to build trust?
the number one thing, and this is going off what you said, consistency. But also being authentic is important, and, when is this session?
Oh, sorry.
Right now? Okay, so quickly,
Okay, let's go this quickly then.
Okay.
What is a way then, what can you do with the trust?
discuss school-wide issues, like we had some drug issues and, stuff like that. Yeah, so we can use that trust to discuss
like
it with those.
Somebody's looking at the camera when you said that, that's nice, well done. Okay, good, definitely. And I've been holding off on that till I've gotten permission, to be very honest about it. I think maybe we can talk
Oh,
about
I
this
wasn't
next week.
like, I know, not specifically, but I think
Oh,
it was
like
during
that kid,
Red
like-
Ribbon.
James was blowing
Well,
on
you
it.
know, Red Ribbon Week was a, like, it was like
Yeah. After- All right, so quickly, we'll be late, guys, so I don't want to leave
I
you
don't know
guys.
that we actually do have time for that.
Oh, no, come on.
No, we don't.
All right, never
We
mind.
gotta move to the next
I'm so
one.
sorry.
The conversation's not over though. Like, I thank you to Mr. Bruce and Mr. Curtis for facilitating the discussion.
Sorry, guys.
And I'll work on bringing us together again as advisors especially to figure out how are we gonna do this or where can we have more of this discussion regardless.
Oh, what's next?
Okay, so you need to go